Hi, I'm Charlie Collins, and we're talking sport. Yeah, welcome to the programme, and we're talking sport this week with the Donegal Senior Team Manager, Jim McGuinness. Jim, you're very welcome to Talking Sport.
Thanks, Charlie.
It's a pleasure to have you. Jim, a big week ahead because next Sunday, of course, in Clonus, I think everybody knows at this stage Donegal will be going to win 3 Ulster Championships in a row. If you had said that to someone 3 or 4 years ago, they might have thought that you'd gone crazy, but that's the reality of life. We're going to come back to that very shortly because, of course, Jim McGuinness wears 2 hats now since October, November of last year when you joined Glasgow Celtic Football Club. And I remember talking to you, I think we were over in London that week for the Donegal Association just after your appointment. And I think that you felt it very important to make it clear that the Celtic situation was not going to interfere with you managing the Donegal football team. And the evidence would clearly show, Jim, that that has been the case.
Well, thankfully, Charlie, that has been the case. And I suppose the club themselves have sort of made that very clear from the outset as well themselves. And even in the last couple of weeks, the manager has given me the last 2 weeks off to prepare the team for the final. So I suppose when you've got the owner, Mr. Desmond, and the manager, Mr. Lennon, let's call him that.
Yeah.
You know, both Irish and understanding, I suppose, the cultural identity that the GAA impacts across the whole county and then the country generally, it's a big help for me in terms of, you know, being able to manage both situations at the moment. So I'm very, very fortunate, Charlie.
Absolutely, Jim. Let's just talk about the Glasgow Celtic situation, Jim, because obviously there was a huge interest when you were mentioned as a possible employee for them, and people were wondering what it was all about because your profile had been heightened immensely with the Donegal involvement. But this was a new departure for you. This was moving into professional sport, professional soccer, but it was something that you trained to do. This is what you were qualified for from a professional point of view. So it's fair to say it was a wonderful opportunity and far too good for you to even consider turning down.
Absolutely. Well, I suppose, you know, it was going to be a very difficult situation in terms of if I had to make the hard call whether it was one or the other.
Yeah.
It would have been a very, very difficult situation because we had just won the All-Ireland. Obviously, it's well documented, my thoughts on the players and what I think of our players and what they've done for the county, and I suppose put us in a great position as a management team to be able to work with an All-Ireland winning team, an Ulster Championship winning team. So, you know, there's a very, very strong bond there. And it would have been very difficult to break that bond, I suppose, at the time. So thankfully it didn't come to that. And you know, I'm managing to be in Glasgow 2 to 3 days a week. And then, you know, I haven't missed any training sessions with the team all year. And I think that's the way it needs to be, you know, if you're going to be in charge. And it's working very well. You know, the experience of it has been phenomenal, really. And I suppose from a coaching point of view, what I'm picking up as I'm going along and what I'm seeing in training and the systems and support systems that are operating over there, and you know, you're learning all the time.
Yeah.
And that's great for me on an individual level, and hopefully you can bring things back into the group as well.
Sure. There's a fascination with what Jim McGuinness does at Glasgow Celtic for obvious reasons. What exactly does he do over there? And we know you're working with the academy and you're working with young people, and Neil Lennon has been at pains to point out how important that work is, because it is a trying sort of a profession, and there's more young people that actually don't make it than do make it. So that can be a big blow to a guy maybe coming in at a very early age and not making it as a professional footballer, Jim.
Oh, very much, Charlie. And I suppose one of the key things for us as a football club is to try and make sure that, you know, nobody slips through the net, and that if somebody is good enough, you know, that they get their opportunity to do what they're good at Celtic Football Club.
Yeah.
That's one of the most important things. And really, the club has kind of moved, I suppose, in the last number of years to a model of sustainability, and, you know, within that, obviously developing players, bringing players through that will come through the system and add value to the first team has been very beneficial financially to keep the bank balances correct at the end of the year. So it is very important for the club, and you know, the transfers that have come into the club as well, you know, they're young players. Victor Wanyama, 21 years of age, you know, Tom Rogic, these types of players that are coming in. Tony Watt, 18 when he came in. So they're all sort of in line with the business model at the moment, which is, look for talent through all the country, the UK, Ireland, and the world, I suppose, after that, for the best possible talent and bring it in. And obviously, if you're 19 or 20, 21 years of age, every single athlete in the world would say there's development in them at that stage.
Sure.
So what Celtic are trying to do is they're trying to bring them in, they're trying to develop them, move them forward, and if they can be successful at Celtic, fantastic, and if there's a sell-on then, and that benefits the club financially, then it's a win-win situation.
Where do you fit there?
Well, I'm working with the players at development squad level that are, I suppose, between... Traditionally, Charlie, you see, you would have a situation where the reserve team would have been maybe 21, 22, 23-year-olds, and a lot of the players that weren't getting first team. But at Celtic now, the development squad, which is the reserve team, is coming down. The age of that is coming down.
17, 18.
17, 16, not 16, sorry, but, under 17s and then under 18s, under 9s. So there's a lot of that going on at the moment where the age profile is coming down. So the profile would be 17 through to about 21. That's the kind of players I'm working with. Also players that have gone from development squad to first team but are in and around 19, 20, 21. They're still involved with us now with a view to continuing their development as they move forward. Even though they're on a professional contract with the first team, it's just to make sure that they hopefully fulfill their potential in terms of physical fitness, technical ability, tactical awareness, mental strength, a host of issues there in terms of their development. And I work with them on a one-to-one situation once a week, and we work through them situations, and we profile them at a fairly in-depth level, and on the back of the profiles we'll work with the coaches or the other people that supporting the players with a view to try and move them forward in the areas where there's potential room for improvement. Yeah,
and I presume you're dealing with all sorts of personalities there, all sorts of insecurities and some people, overconfidence in other people, Jim, and getting the balance correct in terms of bringing them to where you want them to be can be pretty difficult.
Not really, Charlie. I suppose, and it's only when you kind of reflect, after a number of years. But I would have been involved with a lot of teams through me sort of professional practice before I was involved with Donegal. I think I was working with 23 teams the year before I took the Donegal under 21s, and 16 that year and 23 the year before that.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is, in line to your question, is you'd nearly see the personalities within 15 or 20 minutes of being in a dressing room.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same personalities in nearly every single dressing room, and you'll see the unbelievable focused person, and you'll see the person that doesn't know if they want to be there or not, the person that needs to be pulled into line, the person that just needs guidance in terms of their development, but they've got the right attitude. You can just very, very quickly you'll pick that up, and you'll see that. And I suppose that has come from the fact that I've worked with a lot of teams, and it's a very similar situation.
So there's amateur, professional, those same things are still there.
Well, they're all people.
And young people.
They're all people, and they're all young people. And in fairness, there's no wild difference between a Gaelic footballer and a soccer player either, in terms of that. It's really got to do with motivation, and it's got to do with their belief whether they should be there or not on merit, and I suppose whether they're locked on or not locked on to the fact that they're going to make it. Things like that are very, very important. And if you get a player that isn't possibly at the height of their peak of their strength in terms of technical ability and stuff, but they've got the right attitude, then there's a strong possibility them players are going to move forward anyway.
Yeah.
But some players maybe are good enough and they suffer from self-confidence. It's a big club. Celtic Football Club is a big, big brand, and they're very aware of that. Manchester United, Celtic, Barcelona, these are the names that are in the same sort of... So it's a big thing to be at the club, and sometimes possibly people can just feel good about being at the club, but the reality is you've got to push on. You've got to try and develop yourself. You've got to try and move forward, get the best out of yourself, so you give yourself the best opportunity to make it. And what I've noticed in my work, Charlie, is it's a very small time frame, because you'll be given sort of grace, say, as a 17-year-old and 18-year-old, and you're developing, very,
Sure.
very much developing. But when you're 19 then, and when you're 20, there's probably a 2-year window then. You know, if you're not going to make it before 21, there'll be questions asked, maybe why not, because you're nearly at the end of your development.
Yeah.
6 months out from that, possibly the club are forming opinions whether they're going to keep somebody or not, and then all of a sudden you're looking at 18 months there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you go over on your ankle and you're out for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, or a sore knee or something. That's 2 months out of the 18, and it can become very tight that way psychologically in terms of whether they want to, you know, whether they're going to make it or not. And that brings pressure, because obviously these kids are desperate to make it, and
Heart set on being a professional footballer.
absolutely. And not just that, but you're nearly guaranteed one out of the development squad that will make it every year, and it's the rest that are left behind. And they watch the kid going forward. It was Tony Watt last year that went forward.
Yeah.
He ends up then probably 4 months later putting the ball in the back of the net against Barcelona
yeah.
to win the match. You know, so this is the transformation that can happen, and the player over a very short space of time. And it's just, you know, trying to keep sort of manage that expectation and still keep them on track, and still hopefully keep developing them. That's very, very important, I feel, anyway, in my job.
Yeah. And is it difficult to separate the professional job that you're doing from the personal thing, given your GAA background, where you understand how young fellas, how important it is when you're in the parish to get on the team, the village team or the town team or whatever. Does that make it easier for you to relate to them, do you think, Jim, rather than somebody who's come through a hardcore sort of a professional career as a footballer or whatever?
I don't think so, Charlie. I think that, you know, everybody has issues in their life, and everybody, even the most successful people at the club, probably have issues going on in their life. And it's just about, you know, really it's about trying to free people up to be relaxed enough to just go and concentrate on football. And a lot of the time there's a lot of stuff going on in the backdrop. It's the same as our own players at Donegal, you know, and if there is something that is going on, we try to work with them as best we can. We try to do it on a human level, and we try to create a situation where if they need time away from the group, then that's what they get. And when they come back, they've more hunger for what they're doing, you know, and that could be any issue, you know, and that's what you've got to manage. And also the expectation, as I said earlier, about almost it becomes almost desperate, you know, for a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old to make that transition. And sometimes less is more in terms of, you know, pushing and forcing things.
Sure.
You know, if you're in a flow and you're relaxed and you feel good about yourself and you're confident in your own ability, things tend just to roll for you. And that's what you want to try and do. You want to try and create that in the players, to trust themselves. And obviously, if you know at the end of that process that you've given it everything, that there was nothing else left in you, you've done all the strength work, the speed work, the technical stuff, you know, all the games, you've done everything in your power to make it, and you're maybe just not good enough for Celtic Football Club, at least in that situation, you know that you've given it your best shot.
And you've got a good ground in there, maybe to move to a lesser club
and still have a professional career.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. And obviously, as I said earlier, what you don't want is somebody re-emerging at Arsenal or Leeds United or somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know,
as has happened.
Many's a time that has happened, and probably will in the future as well. But it's just because people develop at different ages, and people are exposed to different things at different times in terms of, say, out on loan and playing with proper men and proper competitions on a Saturday afternoon, stuff like that. So all them things can hugely impact on their development at a given period of time.
There's been plenty of examples. The one that just springs to mind as we talk, Dennis Irwin, released on a free by Billy Bremner at Leeds, went to Oldham, I think it was. Played in a cup match against Man United. Alex Ferguson saw something in it, and what a career he had with Manchester United. So he was good enough, but something happened just to stop or prevent his development at one stage. But luckily he came back again.
Yes, and the thing about it is, Charlie, is that thing can be anything. You know, the catalyst maybe for a lot of players is the fact that I've been let go.
Yeah.
I am good enough. I know I'm good enough. And that is the spark that they needed to really push on again at the second attempt. I want to be a professional footballer. I haven't made it here, but I know I'm good enough, and then that's the start point to move forward again. So it can be anything. It could be a family issue. It can be maybe just living away from home and moving back home and being comfortable. There's so many variables at play, and that's why the one-to-one stuff is very important to identify. At the end of every session, I always say to them, is there anything going on? Are you happy with things? Is there any issue that you want to talk about or outstanding? Just an open forum where they can trust you, and what you're trying to do is just free them up to be able to go and play football.
Has it been everything you expected it to be, Jim, or has it been more or less?
No, it probably has, Charlie. It's been fantastic, on so many different levels, and sometimes you've probably got to pinch yourself, really, in terms of the job that you're in. But there's been a lot going on as well, and there's a lot of things within my own job that I'm trying to do to develop for this season that's coming in and stuff that we want to get ready for the start of the season. So it's been very, very busy as well, and we just want to make sure that every system possible we can put in place to make sure that their development moves as smoothly as possible, that at the end of it they will never look back in anger at Celtic Football Club, only just say, nothing more could have been done, and not any other resource could have been put in place for my development, and that's what I was
given the best possible chance, and it's maybe my fault or other things that just prevented me from getting that extra step.
Or I'm a year too late or 18 months too late in terms of the development, and then it happens and it kicks in, and then all of a sudden they come, and that will happen. But what we want to do is try and make sure that we firewall as much as possible in terms of getting everything right internally, so we get as many players through as possible.
Well, you're looking forward to the new season, no doubt.
Very, very much so, and the new season itself brings a lot of really positive things for the development squad, because the squad at the moment are involved in the next generation. So that's a European competition. They'll play 3 games away from home, 3 games at home. That's 6 European games, and UEFA now have brought in an under-19 Champions League. So if Celtic do qualify for the group stages, they'll play. If Celtic are playing on a Wednesday, for example, in Barcelona, the under-19s will play on the Tuesday.
Oh, yeah,
on the
fantastic.
Tuesday over there.
Yeah.
So they'll get 12 European games next year, and that's fantastic because for their development, because they've won the double for the last 4 years in a row within their own country. So that brings a different challenge, different opposition, international opposition, different systems, temperatures, climates and environment. So it's really, really great for their overall development, and we're looking forward to that at the start of the season. All that will take place between, I suppose, the end of the GAA calendar in September, which will be kicking off, and then Christmas, all them European games. So that's going to be a very busy schedule for them.
Perfect timing, and perfect time for us to move on to the GAA, because obviously there was a great sigh of relief when I think everybody was very happy that you got the job and took the job at Celtic. But the big concern was that we were going to lose you at that time, Jim. So as I say, that weekend in London, there was a huge sigh of relief from everyone that the Celtic thing was settled, but you were definitely going to stay on. And I suppose a couple of weeks later, a date popped out, the 26th of May, the start of the defence of the Ulster title and the All-Ireland Championship, and that became the focus. It was almost as if the 27th of May wasn't going to happen, perhaps. The end of the world was going to happen if we lost to Tyrone. But anyway, you created that monster, and a monster it was until we got to Ballybofey that day, and there was a sense of expectation and everything that went with it. And to be fair, I mean, that was an Ulster Championship game worth waiting for, because it had everything from a neutral point of view. If you were emotionally involved, it was a nightmare of sorts, But there it was, the Ulster Championship underway again. And I remember you saying to me after you took the job, and I mentioned this to Eamon McGee, who was in the studio with us earlier on, the Ulster Championship was the first thing because it was so important. We hadn't won it for so long, and then all of a sudden we won it, and then all of a sudden we retained it, and now remarkably we're going for 3 in a row. So here we are, almost back to 0 day again, that we're in an Ulster final, and I know how important that particular title is to you, Jim.
Oh, very much so, Charlie, and to the players as well, and we've been on a long, bumpy road, through our own careers, and a lot of the players through their career as well. And, we won it in 2011, and I suppose if we were unsuccessful after that and this thing hadn't rolled the way it has rolled, a lot of our players would have been very, very thankful to have that Ulster medal in their retirement, and that they worked so hard to achieve it. As it happens, we end up doing 2 in a row. We've ended up winning All Ireland, and now we have a chance to do 3 in a row. So it's just amazing the way we haven't won a title in 19 years, and now 3 years later we're pushing for 3 in a row. And the players have created that. They've created a culture within our training where everybody's focused, everybody's committed. They're putting their lives on hold to be successful, and thank God they're being successful. They're working hard every single night in training to try and move forward and better themselves on an individual level and on a collective level. And from a coaching point of view, Charlie, being honest with you, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
To work with that type of an athlete that's there for all the right reasons, grounded, understands what the process is, engages with that process, and every single time they take to the pitch, deliver. And I don't remember, since we've taken over in Championship football, coming away from a situation where the players didn't perform. And there was some commentary about, the last game against Down, and it wasn't Donegal's best performance and all. For me, the first 25 minutes was probably some of the best football we played all year.
Yeah.
6 points up against a very stiff breeze. Had Down penned in many respects. We lost 2 players. We lost a couple of players in the lead into the game. That was 3 at half time. We had lost from our starting 15. And, the game became attritional. And all of a sudden then it was a case of, this is not going to be easy. So it was the focus then was, how do we get through this? And for me, the very big positives were they retained their composure. They stuck to the game plan. They kept working hard. They never pressed the panic button. They had faith in themselves to see themselves through, and they kicked the big scores at the right times.
Yeah.
So for me, there's an awful lot of positives there.
Yeah.
And we would have liked to have won the game by more, but the reality is, when I was playing football, if you won an Ulster Championship match by 3 points, it was a great day's work.
You were very happy.
And now all of a sudden it has to be 9 points. And,
Well, I suppose that's the monster that's been created, sort of thing, in that what is Donegal today. And if we just flick back to 26th of May, I mean, that Tyrone game, there was a great start in that game as well. And then Tyrone came back, and then the goal came at a key time, and then Tyrone came back again, and then the other goal came at a key time. And if I reflect back on that one, Jim, I have to say and have to admit, when Tyrone got level at the start of the second half, that's when I was worried. I thought this game could go anywhere. And then Patrick McBurdy obviously produced another moment of magic. But I suppose that's a situation that has been created within the squad. As you mentioned there, don't panic. Here's the situation. Let's deal with it and move on from there.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make in sport, Charlie, is that they feel that if they train really hard and preparations go really well and they're injury free, say for example, and they're taking a very positive attitude into a game, they expect that everything's going to go perfect for them.
Yeah.
And it's a fallacy, really. And I think that's where a lot of teams actually fall down. They feel that they're almost owed the victory because they've worked so hard and preparations have gone really well. The reality is, and you spoke about us going ahead, Tyrone coming back, and us going ahead and scoring a goal.
Yeah.
The reality is, you start a game and all's level. They kick a point, you're 1 point behind the line. They kick another one, you're 2 behind the line. You score a goal, you're 1 above the line. And that is a normal graph for every single game of football that's played. So football really is not about you going out and playing really well and doing really well and winning the game and shaking hands, and that's great. Football really is about when you're down, how you deal with it, how you recover from situations, how you face the challenge in that situation. Do you turn on each other? Do you bitch at each other? Do you look for excuses? Do you start getting on to referees? Do you start getting on to linesmen? Do you chase down issues that are not relevant to performance?
Do you hide?
Or do you just keep on doing what you said you were going to do, keep working hard, keep believing in yourself and keep pushing yourself forward? And that's what our lads do. That's what they have done up to this point. That's what they've done in the Down match when it became very physical and very attritional. They never lost their composure. They didn't get sucked into anything. They done the same against Tyrone. And this is a bear pit, the Ulster Championship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so from that point of view, that's for me is the most important thing. So that's where the character comes through in my head. For the players that we've got, and they've done really well in that department. It's going to be similar against Monaghan. They're very fit, they're very strong, they've a lot of big men, really do. Probably more big men than ourselves, and we have a big team. So that's going to be a key part of the game. They're going to bring that into the game, and they're going to lay everything in the line. For me, the biggest danger with Monaghan is I know how ravenous we were for success in 2011. We had a 19-year gap. We wanted to fill that gap. They're in the exact same position. And I know that's what they're going to bring to the table. And you can talk about the football side of things from our point of view and from their point of view, but that's their start point. And our start point now is going for 3 in a row, which is a very significant thing in its own right.
Absolutely.
And that's where the two will meet, and it's how we manage that and how we deal with that, and how then hopefully we can imprint our own game plan on the game.
Yeah. I mean, when the draw was made in Ulster and everybody looks at it, the perception was that Donegal were on the tougher side of the draw, with Down and with Derry and with Tyrone, and you missed out in the preliminary round this year, obviously, and the other side was weaker. All-Ireland champions, reigning Ulster champions, you're going to go into this match as red-hot favourites, as you did against Down. Now, teams have begun to play a certain way against Donegal, Jim. We've seen that down in Cork in the league game this year. Tyrone brought a certain game plan, and Down took a very definite game plan into Breffni Park. I think some people said it doing a Donegal on Donegal, and that's something you've had to deal with as well, obviously. But I mean, is it making it more difficult for Donegal to want to express themselves the way they did in the second year last year rather than the year before?
Well, time will tell, I suppose. The season's only starting really in our heads, and I don't have a problem with it, Charlie, either, because everybody's entitled to set up their team whatever way they want to. For me, Down tried to do what you said there earlier, but there could be a case to be made as well that Kildare set up the same way as Dublin last Sunday, and in my head, we're 3 years down the track with our system, and if somebody's going to mirror our system, you would imagine that we would have more experience of moving that system through the gears than the opposition, and you would imagine that the strongest system will come through. So I don't have an issue with that. If you're trying to replicate off somebody else, I don't have an issue with that. People are trying to win. That's
the key thing, isn't it?
That's what's happening here. People are trying to win, and they're trying to win whatever way it takes to win the game. And that's what we love about it.
But is the downfall for them there, Jim, in that they're going out, and I've said this to other people, teams seem to be going out to try and stop Donegal rather than beat Donegal. And if that's your start point, then you're putting yourself in an awkward situation.
Well, if you have to change what's not normal to create a situation where you've got to set up a certain way to play the opposition, then the opposition's won in the battle in terms of a position of strength, because obviously we're embedded. We're working on things for 3 years. We're like in 2011, we put a huge amount of emphasis on our defensive game plan. It took us so far. We didn't beat Dublin in the semi-final. We had to look at that and say, why not? We weren't putting enough scores on the board consistently. Our score average was 12 points for 2011 in the championship. We went back and we put a huge amount of effort in 2012 into our offensive game. Our score average at the end of the championship, just in championship football, was 17.5 last year. And we're working on things at the moment now for 2013 that we're trying to bring forward and trying to embed to move the thing forward again. So it's a never-ending journey for us. And, if other teams come with certain systems and strategies, then we've just got to manage that and deal with that. Hopefully try and preempt as much as we can. And continue to try and win. That's what it's all about.
You watched Monaghan against Cavan in the semi-final, and they scraped through. I mean, that game could have went either way. I mean, I'm sure you've identified their strengths, which is important, but like every team, they'll have weaknesses there as well, Jim. But will the emotion that you talked about earlier on sort of substitute for that? Or is it a case that if there's certain weaknesses in the team at this particular stage in an Ulster final against the reigning champions, it might be too late to do much about that?
Well, it's hard to say, Charlie. There's so many variables. You know what I mean? There's so many variables, that can happen in the lead into a game and within a game. For us, we tend to move through the same scenario in the lead into a match. And that is to put a huge emphasis on the opposition, to analyse them to the nth degree as much as we can ourselves, to try and get a very firm handle on what they're at, what their capabilities are, key men, so on and so forth. And once we do that, then we turn the focus back on ourselves. So it's probably 25%, 30% the opposition, then 70% ourselves. And then it's about getting ourselves right, building towards the game. From a coaching point of view, for myself and Rory, the message that we're putting across to the boys, do they know it? And if they know it, can they show us that they know it? And can they implement it night after night after night? So that's why Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday and next Tuesday for us are five very important
key,
sessions.
yeah.
And this is where the game will be won and lost in many respects in the next 5 sessions. And at the end of that process, you'd like to think, you'd like to think in this day week that you'd be saying to yourself after training, I don't know if we're going to win or not, but I know that they're ready for the game in terms of what we expect that's going to unfold. And then you've just got to pass the baton on to the players. It's over to them when they cross the line. They deliver every single day, not us. And we have to hopefully try and see what's going on in real time in terms of switches and stuff. But it's really down to the players then. And they've been excellent, Charlie. Over the last 3 years, they've been excellent. Excellent at taking information and using that information, and excellent at expressing themselves within a flexible framework as well. And they see things of their own accord on top of,
and deal with them.
And deal with them. So, we're very fortunate that that doesn't happen by chance, and it happens because people are focused on what they're doing. They're switched on, and in many instances, very unselfish to make things happen for your teammates.
Yeah. One of the big challenges this year has been getting people fit, getting them out on the pitch. You had to make a couple of big calls against Tyrone and leave Mark McHugh and Carl Lacey on the bench, which worked out well, but you lost Frank McGuinness early in that game. Similarly against Down.
And Anthony Thompson.
And Anthony Thompson, correct, exactly, that's right, with injury. And then in Breffni Park, you had to start without Carl again and Neil Gallagher. And as you mentioned earlier on, by half-time, there was more changes, David Walsh and Ryan Bradley, and then Frank McGlynn. So if it's proved anything, perhaps it's finally put to bed this myth that Donegal were a 15-man squad, and after that they were going to struggle greatly, because the people who've come in at key times in both those matches and acquitted themselves very well, Jim, and that's got to be a big positive for you.
Very much so, Charlie. The thing about it is we haven't lost a game. And over the course of the postmortem, it was lost because we hadn't enough depth. That hasn't happened. So whether people talk about whether we have depth or we don't have depth, we haven't lost a game on the back of that yet.
Yeah.
So there isn't really an issue there to debate in my head, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That said, Carl Lacey, Anthony Thompson, Frank McGlynn, Mark McHugh, Neil Gallagher, they're all hugely important players for our team, and hugely important players over the last number of years for the team. So we want them players back fully fit as quickly as possible, so we become as strong as possible for the run-in for the rest of the championship. And at the moment we're in a good position. We've everybody training, we've everybody working hard, and fingers crossed we will have everybody fit for the final. Whether Carl and Neil are fit to start or not in the final, I don't know, but Mark's fitness has really soared in recent weeks. Same as Frank McGlynn, same as Anthony Thompson, and that was a line in the half-back line, that gave us a key line that gave us a lot of energy last year and a lot of scores as well. So they're moving now very close to full speed again, as are all the other players that have been fit, which is a big positive for us. And hopefully we can get the few other lads that have the problem sorted out in Carl and Neil Gallagher. The other thing on that, Charlie, is this is the time of year we crave. Our players are away in college. We don't like taking them up and down from Dublin and Galway and so forth during the winter months. We don't have them during the winter months. The league finishes then, and then they're still in college. They're doing exams, and you talked about the 26th of May there. That's roughly around the time that all the exams are finished. And from that time through to the championship's conclusion, that's when really we've got everybody. They're in their own beds. They're relaxed because they don't have the pressure of being away from home and college and financials or whatever, and they're working every single night. And I feel we move forward every single night when we've got that situation. So we really crave this time of year, and now that our fitness levels are coming together within the collective, if we can get the few injuries sorted out, we hope, fingers crossed, be in a good position for the final.
How hard would it be to leave Carl Lacey out of the starting lineup again if it came to that? Because you're talking about the player of the year last year, 4-time All-Star, fantastic player. But you made that call obviously because he'd been out for a long time before the Tyrone game, and he contributed when he came in. Unfortunately, then picked up another injury, and that slows the progress. Jim,
I think that our players wouldn't be thinking, geez, we've lost Carl, 4-time All-Star, player of the year. They wouldn't be thinking like that. They'd just be thinking, right, Carl's not playing today. We still need to win the game. Someone needs to come in and do a job. And it has happened where Neil McGee pulled his hamstring in the warm up against Tyrone last year. Michael Murphy missed the Cavan match last year. So there's been loads of examples.
Rory Kavanagh missed a game at some stage.
Yeah, Neil
last year,
Gallagher
didn't he?
missed the Ulster final in 2011. So there's loads and loads of examples where, key players have been out. I don't think we've ever dwelled on it, and it's never been a negative in the dressing room. It's never been, oh, geez, the shoulders drop, we're not going to be able to take that hit. That has never ever been on the players' minds when a decision like that has to be made. It's just a case of,
so be it.
He's out, we've got to deal with it. Let's just win the game and try and get him back for the next match.
Yeah. Monaghan then, it's going to be a big challenge, Jim. History in the making. I mean, you've already created history, and there's another issue there about the most number of victories in the Ulster Championship. It's going to be 3 in a row for Donegal. We never had done 2 in a row before. All those things will be something to look back on, I suppose, when all this wonderful time that we're having has ended. But all that matters now is the match against Monaghan on Sunday. It's another step. It's an Ulster title possibility and a step towards the All-Ireland quarter-final. Is that basically it in a nutshell?
No, I don't think so.
More than that?
More than that, because we haven't spoke about 3 in a row ever, but the reality is now we've created a situation where it's on. And in my mind, something I feel very strongly about is, Charlie, is that a lot of these players were written off, and they were nowhere 3 or 4 years ago, and it didn't look as if they were going to get their Ulster medal. And if we could win this game and take the 3 in a row back to Donegal and go into the company of Cavan and the Cavan team of the 40s, the Down team of the 60s, and the Armagh team of the noughties, I think that would be phenomenal redemption for this group of players, and everything they deserve based on the work that they've put in over the last couple of years. So for me, there's a lot more to it on this one, because it will put them in a space that nobody can deny that they were a great team, and the players themselves have created that. So you've got that dynamic, and you've got the match itself, and we always just take it one game at a time. But what I'm talking about there is the consequences of winning. The process of approaching the game will be the same, but the consequences of winning are very, very significant. And not only that, but to go to Croke Park as provincial champions for the 3rd year in a row is very good for your confidence going into Croke Park.
And does it still sound as good as it sounded last year? Donegal All-Ireland Senior Football Champions?
Not something that's important to me, Charlie. Not things I dwell on, to be honest with you. The pomp of it and the whole lot. It's really just about where we're at and where we need to get to. Injuries, keeping up with the medical people, keeping up with everybody, the programmes, and just pushing the thing forward as much as we can. There will be a time to look back and to reflect, but for now, we just got to stay level-headed, stay focused on what the job is. And for us now, the job is Monaghan, and preparing as best we can to put in the best performance possible in that game. And if we do that, then I'll make peace with the result. What I wouldn't like to see happen, Charlie, we would be coming out of Clonus on Sunday week, having not given it everything and losing the game. If they give it everything, we'll be very proud of them, and we'll make peace with the result.
I'm sure you wouldn't think for 1 second that they won't give everything, because we've seen no evidence of that in the last few years, that they won't give everything they have.
No, that's true, but you don't have a God-given right. Nobody has a God-given right, and nobody definitely has a God-given right to win. And we've seen in recent weeks with Kilkenny, this Kilkenny team that was impenetrable, and the best team that ever played, and they're being challenged and they're being tested, and you can see their comments after these games, that we've been wrote off, and these questions have been asked of us in the past, and that's pride. That's pride in what they do in terms of, putting themselves out there as one of the top teams in the country. And for us, we just want to try and be the best that we can be. We're very fortunate with the players we have. We have a great captain that leads the players. We have a great backroom team that supports the players. There's a great interaction that's founded 100% on respect. We respect the players so much, and we enjoy their company so much. And they're working so hard for the county that everybody within the county and outside the county from Donegal are so proud of them. And that is a great thing to be living in at the moment.
Absolutely.
And everybody's enjoying that, and they understand that. And nothing lasts forever, Charlie. You know what I mean? There's no guarantee that it's just going to continue on and on and on. So these are very special times we're living in terms of football in the county, and we just want to get the most out of it now. And we want to, myself and Rory, from the coaching point of view, want to make sure that we do everything in our power to help them on that journey, and then hopefully they can do the real business then out on the pitch.
So to sum up, Celtic parked for the moment, thanks to the owner and to the manager, and a busy time ahead after September. Between now and then, the focus is on. Well, you created a date, the 26th of May. You're not going to create another one, are you?
No, I'm not going to create another one, but I don't think I'm going to get off until the end of the championship either from work. I think it was maybe just in the lead into this final for a few weeks. But no, it's we're in a very good place, Charlie. Yeah. Everybody is, as I said before the All-Ireland final, coming to training with the right mindset, a very good focus about them. They know what it's about now. They knuckle down really quickly in terms of getting into the right sort of groove within training sessions. They move then really well through the sessions with a view to sort of pushing themselves a wee bit closer to the match itself. And if you were stopping training because people hadn't the right attitude, or people weren't switched on, or people weren't focused, you'd be thinking to yourself, Jesus, that's not the case. It's a real, honest, genuine focus to be the best that they can be, and hopefully that will be enough to make it 3 in a row. And fingers crossed they can do that. It's going to take a big performance, this one, Charlie. And if we can won this game by a point, I'll be absolutely delighted.
Sounds to me as if we're ready to win it, Jim. Listen, it's a great pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate you coming in to talk to me on Talking Sport. And we wish you and the boys all the very best for Sunday in Clonus and beyond, hopefully. We'll certainly look forward to getting back to Croke Park in August. Jim McGuinness, thanks a million.
Thanks, Charlie.
That's it from Talking Sport this edition. Just to remind you, of course, I've been talking to the Donegal senior team manager, Jim McGuinness, also employee of Glasgow Celtic. A good insight to what it's all about for both jobs for Jim McGuinness. We'll be back next week with Talking Sport, when of course we'll be reviewing the Ulster final between Donegal and Monaghan. For now, all the best.